Hey everyone. So Trump just bombed Iran and he's about to address the nation live. We're going to watch it together here in just a moment. I'm going to catch you up to speed on what we know so far until he begins to address the nation. As soon as he does so, we're going to immediately cut over to that. But let me maybe share a couple things that we have so far. This has come from Trump and his Truth Social. He has posted this saying, "We have completed our very successful attack on the three nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordow. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention in this matter." So this is a very tense situation, as you can clearly see. We got reactions from various personalities, media figures. Lex Friedman, he's saying, "We're gambling with the fate of humanity. This was an act of war. We cannot walk back. May God help us," he says. We got Fox News breaking this information. Let's briefly watch this very quick clip here as we're preparing for Trump to address the nation and explain what happens next and what has also happened. Here we go. Let's dive in.
Fox News alert. I just spoke to the President of the United States. I have some new information and breaking details to share about tonight's what is historic air campaign. Now, tonight, Iran's nuclear ambitions, they are officially dead. It appears the United States just completely obliterated Iran's top secret Fordow nuclear facility with 6 huge bunker buster bombs. It was originally speculated that you would only need 2. It turns out they used 5 to 6 dropped from America's stealth B-2 bombers. And that's not all. 2 other major Iranian nuclear sites, Natanz and Esfahan, were wiped out with 30 Tomahawk missiles launched by American submarines some 400 miles away. Everyone is out of harm's way for now. That does not mean that American assets in the region are not at risk. And we are monitoring the Iranian response or potential response all throughout the night.
Yeah, and they've promised that there would be a response. I believe Trump is about to come out, so let's go ahead and shift over to that. Looks like he's about to address the nation.
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight. and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wow. How disappointing, as people are pointing out in the comment section, that he ran on, a no war platform, and yet here we are. Wow, this is, I guess we saw it coming, right? I think we all knew this was going to happen. It was pretty clear Trump was leaning this way, but I'm just speechless at this point. And my concern is what is the response going to be, and will that escalate the situation and then require American troops to have to lay down their lives for this and because of this? All based on the claim that Iran is building nukes, something that we've heard Netanyahu say for decades. The media has been making fun of him, pointing out how often he said, yeah, in 2 weeks they're going to have nukes. Looks like he was pushing for a war with Iran, a regime change, and now he's getting his wishes because the United States, and in particular Trump, is backing up his agenda. Let's hope this is the right move and not the wrong move. Let's hope that this doesn't lead to further aggression, further responses, further reactions, not only from Iran, but maybe even other groups. There's a few other clips I came across because this is just breaking news. So a lot of people haven't reacted to it yet. Here's Iranian state TV saying that Trump started this, but they're going to finish it, which is, I think, what we're all afraid of is how this might escalate into more and more problems, which would then escalate into even greater issues.
من هدف مشروع ایران هستند. آمریکا با این اقدامی که انجام داد علیه ایران و حریم هوایی ایران را شکست و جنایت علیه ایران انجام داد، دیگه جایی در منطقه غرب آسیا نداره. آقای رئیس جمهور آمریکا، شما شروع کردید و ما تمومش خواهیم کرد.
So he says, you started it in reference to Trump, but we will finish it. Certainly a threat. And we'll find out very soon if Iran is going to make good on that threat. And keep in mind, it has been making that threat even prior to today, saying that if America gets involved in this kind of way, it will respond and respond aggressively. And I think that's what everybody is concerned about at this moment. And now watch this, where people were pointing out potential ramifications of what would happen if Trump takes the action that he just took. Watch this video.
What happens if the US targets Iran's Fordo enrichment facility? This wouldn't just be a military strike, but a very real risk of an unprecedented nuclear disaster in the Middle East. The Fordo facility lies south of the capital, Tehran, near the holy city of Qom. It's built under a mountain, more than 80 meters deep underground. It's here that Iran enriches uranium to high levels, up to 90%, which is close to the threshold required to produce a nuclear weapon. If this facility were bombed and the stored nuclear materials detonated, the consequences would be catastrophic. Within a 1 kilometer radius, radiation levels would be lethal within hours. Within 5 kilometers, people would experience severe radiation sickness, bleeding, vomiting, organ failure. Up to 20 kilometers away, increased risk of cancer, birth defects, and long-term contamination of water and soil. Tens of thousands could be forced to evacuate for years. And the worst part? Winds could carry radioactive dust to Qom, Tehran, and even neighboring countries. If such an attack occurred, Iran would likely consider it a declaration of war and could retaliate by launching hundreds or even thousands of missiles at Israel and American bases. This wouldn't be a limited operation, but the start of a dangerous regional escalation. Is the world truly prepared to face such consequences?
Right. This is why some people are afraid that this would trigger World War III. And so, it appears that Iran has been threatening that it will retaliate, and a lot of people have speculated it will retaliate by striking at U.S. bases overseas. And analysts have pointed out that those bases are not prepared for that kind of engagement from Iran, that they likely will lose, and the United States will lose ground overseas. And of course, that will trigger further responses from the United States. And I suspect it's not just going to be limited to the United States, Israel, and Iran. Then you could potentially, of course, have other countries getting involved. And this may be the beginning or the triggering of a World War III. This is what a lot of people are afraid of. And they were hoping that maybe Trump would de-escalate the situation. Instead, it appears that he has just aggravated the situation. Looks like we also have a statement from Netanyahu praising Trump for the actions he has taken, of course. Let's see what he says.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you. God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
I don't know. It's disturbing to me when a man who's genociding an entire people in Gaza praises the war acts of the United States. That's not an endorsement, I think, that the United States wants or should value. But it is unfortunately where we are currently at, and it's very concerning. He says history will remember this a certain way, in a very favorable way. I don't know. Or will history remember this as an act that triggered a way greater, much more devastating situation, perhaps even a World War III? We know what triggered World War I, what triggered World War II. will history record this as here's where the United States triggered a third world war? Some are calling him George W. Trump, in reference to George Bush. I think that after this move, the support that Trump had from his base is gone. I don't think the majority of people who voted for Trump voted for this. In fact, they voted for the very opposite. He claims that there was not going to be any wars. America wasn't getting involved in any of that. And yet here we are. Trying to see if there's any more information. Scrolling through social media real quick to see if there's any other maybe breaking news that has come out. We just saw Trump in his statement. We just saw Netanyahu. We haven't seen Iran's response yet, other than Iranian state TV that is saying they're going to respond and retaliate. And we've already again known that since they've been saying that. Did he just get us involved in another war in the Middle East? Really looks like it. I don't think it's going to end here. I really don't think Iran's just going to look the other way. Suspect they will respond and others will get involved, and some will back Iran and others will back the United States. And this will escalate further. Something I think we're all afraid of, and rightly so. Looking through the chat, trying to see how people are reacting. Josh V says this was a stupid move by Trump. OAB1 says, I'm sorry, Lord, please help us. JB says, I voted for Trump for no more wars. I'm so disappointed. Trump has lost my support along with everyone in his cabinet. I suspect his entire base feels that way right now. All the people who supported him, I suspect they're going to turn their back on him at this point, since it appears he has actually turned his back on them. Tanner says, how many people switched parties just because they believe he'd be a man of peace? I don't know if Kamala Harris was elected, would she have gone along with this? Maybe. She was also in favor of Israel, and so she may have been a pushover and would have done the same thing. If they managed to push Trump into this, I suspect they would have done that to Kamala. Looking through the chat, one questioner is asking, by attacking Iran, did we just get ourselves into direct conflict with Russia? We're going to have to wait and see. I can see it going either way. Jerome says he was showing signs 2 to 3 days ago with some reporters that he'd do this. Yep. I already got the impression that he was, leaning towards this very move. And here we are. Harris would be worse for the American people. I suspect so. What's pitiful, however, is that we were limited, as I've said all along, that we're limited to those two choices. Out of all the people in the United States, we don't have more qualified people to run this country. Are we kidding me? It was one of those two. That was it. Nobody else. Out of what, 300 million people, we don't have anyone else more qualified? Hard to believe. Patrick says we are already deploying people midweek. What do you think of the concept of peace through strength? Bush the third. Some are calling Trump now. Why not support more political parties? Fair enough, but it would have to be a large movement of people doing so. If you just support another political party, but it's just you and a few people, you're wasting your time. It would have to be a massive amount of people making a shift, making a change. Tanner says, don't worry, U.S. arrogance will save us. Who really runs the United States? Jeremiah asks. Yeah, I think that it's become pretty clear, the answer to that question in some aspects. It's very concerning, y'all. Jennifer says Trump threatened further action if Iran retaliates. He sure did. And I suspect Iran will retaliate. And suspect Trump will further retaliate. And you see how there's going to be a snowball effect here, where this will turn to more and more and more aggression. Somebody in the comment section earlier was saying, just as every time America starts doing good, we get involved in some war. Are war imperialists controlling these leaders? One questioner asks. M. Caspa says, Iran is a toothless dog. I wouldn't be worried. Okay. Hi, Michael. If Iran was close to a nuclear weapon, what do you think of this action? I don't think anybody wanted Iran to have nuclear weapons. I also don't want Israel to have nuclear weapons, but it looks like they do, and they shouldn't. Hey, he says, enjoy your insight, Michael. My insight today is I am outrageously disappointed with Trump. I suspect that there were other ways to deter Iran from achieving nuclear weapons. There were other ways to avoid this if that was actually a real issue. Again, we've been told over and over that they've been a few weeks away from achieving a nuclear bomb, and we've been told that for decades. So why is it all of a sudden something that we can trust now just because Netanyahu tells us? Others were saying otherwise, and so how do we even know that that's true? But let's just assume it's true. I suspect that there are other ways to handle this without escalating the situation. But it looks like Netanyahu continued to escalate the situation by continuing to strike Iran, not only with the preemptive strike, but ongoing strikes after that, not allowing for peace talks to be successful. I think that there were other options here. One questioner says, wait, Israel has nuclear weapons? Not officially. Yeah, they do. That's part of the problem. And I think that's also why some other countries in the Middle East are trying to obtain these weapons so that they can make sure they're in a position to better negotiate or to even deter Israel. One questioner wants me to do a video on this in relation to war theory. Yeah, perhaps. Max says, I think most states want a nuclear weapon as a deterrent rather than an offensive weapon. Maybe. And I don't know if that was the case for Iran. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But I think that there were other ways to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon if that was truly a threat. We're also told about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and Saddam, and turns out all that wasn't true. So how do we really even know this information is reliable? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'm not in a position to weigh in either way. Perhaps the information we're fed online and in the media is true. Maybe it's not. If it's true, I think there were other ways to prevent them from continuing to achieve nuclear weapons without having to resort to this kind of measure, a measure that will certainly lead to more aggression, more acts of retaliation, more bloodshed. And do we really want our sons and daughters going overseas to fight this war for us? Do we want this? I could totally understand why parents of military personnel would just feel so disheartened right now and feel like, you know what, that this isn't our fight, this isn't our war, and we shouldn't always be there to fight the wars for Israel. Let Israel stand on its own. At this point, it really should fend for itself. We can't be there at every twist and turn for Israel. If it wants to take a certain direction, let them do what they want, but we should not be involved in that. And by the way, I'm not supporting anything that Israel is doing, but what I'm saying is, as far as U.S. policy, I don't think we need to continue to support this, especially actually have to supply our own sons and daughters to fight in this war. Jerome says it is in our fight. We're not obligated by the church to support Israel no matter what. Well, let Ted Cruz tell it. If you don't, you'll be cursed by God. It's this mentality that has gotten the United States into the position that it's in. Bad biblical exegesis, a wacky understanding of Scripture promoted by various Christian Zionist circles. This is what has led to it. Roll says Ted Cruz is an idiot. I think we saw that after that interview with Tucker. One commenter says this is what happens when you let Protestants control our military. At least the Zionist Protestants, right? I do think that is a huge impact on United States interaction with and policies towards Israel. Behind it is a really dumb understanding of the Bible and also eschatology. One questioner asks, is this one small part of a plan that involves undermining China? I don't know. I don't know if they're playing 4D chess like that. Great Wall says, I joined a little bit late, so I'll have to watch the first part, but this is bad news. Yeah, I think we're in agreement all around that this is bad news. I'm looking here at the chat. Almost everybody is saying that. I've only seen a few people in favor so far in the chat who have been in favor of this strike. I understand they have their arguments. I get it. They have their perspective. They have their arguments. I get it. I know where they're coming from. I get it. I still think it's the wrong move. One person says Michael Lofton for president. I feel like there's probably millions of other people more qualified than the candidates we have every single year running for president of the United States. Alex says he doesn't agree with the move. Jacob says Iraq was an evangelical crusade. Deborah says, yes, it's bad news. Looks like most people are agreeing with that. One commenter says, I used to be pretty pro-Israel, and I've been thinking, well, a lot differently about Israel. I understand. I get it. I think the situation with Gaza opened up a lot of people's eyes. And I think that changed a lot of minds. Alex says he's praying for peace. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. But odds are there's not going to be peace from this action. Odds are. Barring some miraculous intervention. Zachary says Michael Lofton for president. Again, I honestly feel like, why were we left with those two options, Kamala and Trump? So pitiful that we couldn't come up with something better. Surely we could have gotten someone else in there that would not have brought us to the state in which we're currently in, who would not have run on a no war platform telling us that what we've been doing in the Middle East is, useless and wrong. And yet here we are. It looks exactly like George Bush. So weird. I've actually seen people take Bush's face and mold it with Trump's face and, AI models where it looks like a George Trump. It's true. It's so odd. What happened to the other Trump that just a few years ago was completely opposed to this? Why is he so beholden to Israel? Why doesn't he just tell them, get lost? Fend for yourself. Not doing this for you anymore. Tanner says, Michael, I wouldn't wish being president on my worst enemy. Well, I'm not running for president. But I hear you. I get it. Schofield Reference Bible is to blame for this, among other resources, yes. The previous commenter changed his mind on Israel, says, exactly right, the Gaza situation red pilled me on anti-Israel mindset. I get it. I think many people have had a shift in their mentality on Israel after observing that situation for 2 years now. Man, it's been so long. And it's still ongoing. And what's insane is, okay, so Israel has all this intel in Iran and is able to attack all of these high military personnel. They have all this intel on everyone except they don't know where the hostages are. Really? Seriously? This is an indictment on Israel. Of course they know where the hostages are. There's a reason why they're prolonging this. It's not about the hostages. Some are saying AIPAC is the reason. Will says this administration is not beholden to Israel, contrary to what I just stated. It just so happens that our interests aligned on not allowing Iran to get a nuke. I'm sorry, Will, I'm not buying that. Zachary says, Michael, your coverage has opened my mind on the government of Israel. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'll continue to address these issues. Continue to be as fair with the data as possible, as open and honest as possible. It's a complex situation. The case for Israel is looking worse and worse and worse. And I suspect history is going to judge the state of Israel very, very harshly. Very harshly. And the United States as well, for that matter. Great Wall says gas prices about to skyrocket. Maybe, but I think that's not even the biggest concern, I feel like this is going to get us in a war. Susan said Israel forgets what happened to it. You're very perceptive. You're very perceptive, Susan. Tanner asks, does Israel have dirt on our politicians? I don't know what's going on. But it's odd to see Trump just do a complete 180 like this in such a short amount of time. That's just odd. I don't know what's going on there. What was the rush on Trump's stupid decision? Exactly. Couldn't he have waited a little bit longer, tried to negotiate more? Tell Israel, stop attacking because that's impeding the negotiations. Stop attacking. We can actually get a deal. Michael says, I've never yelled at my TV until that speech. First time in my life, I had to turn it off. Agnus Dei says, do you believe this was prophesied? It's a good question. One commenter says this is a lawless and illegal attack. Another says this is Iraq 2.0. Another commenter says, love you, Michael. Hope to see you in the next great life if things go south. I hear you. Negotiate? Didn't even know he did. He was in the process. But guess who impeded that process? Guess who? It was Israel. Because they kept striking Iran, and Iran said, okay, we're not going to be able to have a deal if they keep attacking us. If Netanyahu would have cooled his jets and allowed for peace talks, probably wouldn't be here. Well, also, if he, of course, didn't initiate and start this war and attack Iran, we wouldn't be here. There were other ways to, I'm sure, deter Iran from achieving nuclear weapons. Don't tell me, well, Michael, they would have achieved nuclear weapons. I'm sure there was another way to prevent that from happening in the direction that was taken both by Israel and now the United States. George W. Trump, Lowe says. A lot of people are saying that. One commenter says, you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars. It's a verse that applies in every century. Someone says, I'm not going to cry about Iran losing their nuclear facilities. I don't think anybody is asking you to do that. But you might cry whenever someone in your family has to go to war and ends up losing their life over this. You might cry then. I sure hope that doesn't happen to you, Gabriel. There's consequences, however, to this. You're thinking in one dimension here. You think that this is it? That's all? It's just an attack on their facilities and everyone goes home. That's the end of the day. You don't think there will be a retaliation? You don't think there will be a further response from the United States? You don't think that's going to get us into a war? You don't think people are going to lose lives? Why are you so flippant about this? I mean, with all due respect, I'm not trying to be mean to you, Gabriel. I don't understand people like you. I just don't. It's like unless you're involved, unless you're the one being attacked or something, unless you're the one actually making the sacrifice, you just don't care. Maybe I've misread you. Maybe I've totally misread you. But your flippant comment like this comes across as incredibly insensitive to all the lives that are going to be impacted by this. Nobody's asking you to cry about Iran losing an alleged nuclear facility. Now, I just say alleged because at this point, I don't know what to believe. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But I can't bank on anything that the government tells me after what we've seen previously with Iraq. JB says, I'm happy you took the time to go live during this. I wasn't expecting it. I was at home, enjoying spending time with my family, doing stuff around the house. Definitely didn't expect this, but it's certainly worth discussing. Someone says just 81 likes. Yeah. But if I did a video on something really stupid and shallow, I'd have 1 million people watching and liking. Maybe we need to have a mukbang stream or something. People are so shallow. It's amazing. One commenter says a Catholic should not be expected to fight in a war for Israel. It seems contradictory. Michael says, I'm not thinking about likes now. I understand. Jennifer says, I was doing my diamond painting, just minding my own business. Yeah, and then here we are learning that we're probably about to go to war again. Great Wall says, well, if I do the mukbang streams, I'll have to send some food. I can promise you we're not doing that. But yeah, the repercussions of this will not be fun. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. That's what people need to be thinking about right now. What are the repercussions? Again, there were other ways to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons. So don't let somebody say, we had to do it. We couldn't let them have nuclear. I'm sure there's other ways. I'm sure there's other ways. I'm sure dialogue could have been successful, especially if Netanyahu was not aggressively attacking Iran in the process of those talks. Did I say I want to die? Yeah, I lost maybe about 25 now, 25 pounds. That's why we're not doing the mukbanging. To bring a little levity to this stream. Golly, this is so intense. What were the other ways? Peace talks, negotiations that were actually taking place up until the last few days. Exploring those more. There were other ways. War's not always the only option. I'm not buying that it was the only option here. I don't believe that. We've been dialoguing for 30 years, Katie says. Oh, I thought it was for 30 years. They've been telling us that Iran was just a few days away from achieving nuclear weapons. I'm getting mixed up on our stories. Tanner says, I don't know. Maybe the nuclear deal Trump stopped. I'm sure that is involved. Katie says peace talks didn't work. You need to ask the question, why didn't they work? Because Netanyahu was actively bombing Iran while they were going on, and they said, you can't do that if you want us to agree to something. He needs to stop, and he wouldn't stop. I mean, this is according to what sources in the United States were indicating, for whatever that's worth. RSM says, enjoying your takes. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hope it's helpful for whatever they're worth. What's the mukbang? Isn't that the term for the people who eat excessively on camera for likes and all that? Isn't that what it means? I thought that's what it's called. Yeah. Mukbang. It's one word. It's where they overeat and overindulge in food on camera, and people for some reason watch that. I have no idea why. It's really weird. But evidently it gets like millions of views and millions of likes. As Israel committed war crimes by attacking Iran. Israel and war crimes, you ask. Again, I suspect, you remember the Nuremberg trials, right? After the Holocaust, after World War II. I suspect there are going to be some future trials, and Israel this time will be on the stand. Perhaps for war crimes. And we'll see how that shakes down. Annette says this is crazy. Yeah, it is. Katie says they say death to America and they're serious. I'm sure they are serious. By the way, do you know what they mean when they say that? You ever actually read what they mean when they say that? You know, the supreme leader of Iran has explained what is meant by that, right? Not saying I agree with it, but I suspect if I were to grill you on that, you don't actually know how they've explained it. Whether their explanation is what is true or not, or whether they're lying is a different question. Either way, I think the point is no matter how aggressive they are, no matter how evil they are, no matter how bad their intentions are towards the United States, I don't think that this was the way to handle it, because I do think this will lead to further problems. Very sad to see you continuing to vehemently defend this, Katie. But I appreciate us having this discussion. Thank you for your contribution. Somebody said, no, please explain. What is it? I'm not an Iran apologist. I'm not here to explain Iran. Somebody says, I want to hear it. Explain what death to America means. I mean, you can easily pull it up. It's like really easy to search what is meant. If you just look it up, Ayatollah was saying he's talking about the regime, not all American people. Now, whether or not he's lying when he says that, or whether or not that somehow makes it better, I think it's a problem either way. But my issue is that has been put out there a lot, but very few people have actually contextualized it, and they're using that as justification for further acts of aggression now. That's my concern. That's my issue. I'm not here to defend Iran, and I'm not on Iran's side. I'm definitely not. But I'm also not on Israel's side. I think they're both in the wrong. And my problem is that America is backing Israel on this, and I think there are some issues there. But just because you don't support Israel doesn't mean you have to support Iran. I think there were ways to deal with Iran, however, without going this way. Thanks for the super chat. Could this lead to an Iraq 2.0? I think it already is. And this is largely Israel's doing, and we're pretty involved all along. Not sure why we're involved. Yeah. Hitting the head on the nail there. But you have to pick sides according to our leaders. I don't think that you have to. I think that you can say that both of them are wrong. Sure, I think that you can argue one is worse than another. And we can have the debate on who's worse, Israel or Iran. But I don't think that you have to be in favor of either. Iris says both are wrong. Michael says you don't have to pick sides. I agree. I think you could say both of them are wrong. This puts a massive black mark on Trump. Yeah, he's anathema to me after this. He's anathema. And I suspect that many others who voted for him feel the same way. Not that I think Kamala would have done a better job. But again, it's sad that those were the only two options. All right, y'all. That's going to do it. I'll keep y'all updated with further developments to this story. Hit the like button, not that we like the subject matter, but just to help spread the information that I shared on this video. And also hit the subscribe button so you can be in tune with what's going on with the channel. As like I said, I'll continue to cover this topic and many others. Great. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Comment. He says, thanks for offering a balanced take. Thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and we can all pray that this doesn't escalate. But I think we know it's going to. We'll find out very soon, I suspect. See y'all soon.